Hello and welcome to NOV Live. I'm Michael Gaines and glad you are joining us today for another conversation with technical experts from around the world who are bringing you insight and understanding of technology aims to the energy industry. So hope you are ready for another conversation today as we bring you a couple experts that will provide some perspective on the world of offshore seawater treatment. And I think that'll be an interesting one. So whether you're an expert or if you don't know anything about it, our hope is that you will be able to gain some insight and knowledge on the topic. So glad you are here. So before we get into our main conversation and bring in guests today, we want to bring in someone who is a regular here on the show. So Shelby, and she is here to tell you how you can be part of our conversation and get your questions into our experts. So, hey, Shelby, good to see you.
Hey, Michael, it's great to see you as well. So if you're watching at home, the easiest way to get involved in the show, if you wanted to get your questions answered, is simply by commenting below. So if you're on Facebook, LinkedIn, or YouTube, go ahead and type your question at any point in the show. And as always, I'm in the comment section throughout the entirety of the episode, looking at all your questions, gathering them, putting them together. And at the end, we're going to go through and get to as many of those questions as possible. And in fact, right now, just to practice going into the comment section, let us know where you're from. So I always love kind of checking it out and seeing, I'm seeing some really great Ecuador, US, Africa. Yeah, we're getting Louisiana. It's one of my favorite states here in the US. So welcome for watching the show. Go ahead and let us know where you're tuning in from. And then after the show, if you still have more questions or maybe ideas for a future episode, you can let us know those in a couple different ways. The first is you can email us. So the email is socialmedia@nov.com. You can just shoot us a quick message there. And the second way is you can call us. So like I said, you can call us, leave us a voicemail. I love this option because you can stay anonymous, or you can let us know your name, maybe where you're from and where you work. We could feature you on a future episode, but that number is on screen as well. It's country code +1 346 223 4799. So we'd love to hear from you after the show. But again, like I said, if you have any questions for Michael or for our guests, you can go ahead and put those in the comment section now, and we'll get to as many as we can.
Great. All right. Well, thanks, Shelby. That is great. And I always look forward to, as you said, the comments and seeing where those folks are coming from. So I just wanted to, I know you still have one more part of the conversation, but I just wanted to reemphasize that we are really, like you said before, of our viewers and for them tuning in every week part of the show.
Absolutely, Michael. And speaking of kind of asking questions, so yeah, like I said, we love to hear people ask their questions, but now it's time for the part of the show where we ask you a question. So it's time for Rig Geek Post of the Week.
Rig Geek's Post of the Week.
All right, I'm particularly excited about this question, Michael. So, we talk about how I kind of work in the realm of social media for NOV, and this is something that if you are a true fan of NOV, a true rig geek, you might have seen this post on our feed before, so you might have a little insight for the answer. But our question today is, during a project in the Ecofisk field, Seabox was filmed and encountered a visit from a local inhabitant. So can you guess what we'll call local inhabitant visited our Seabox that we actually got caught on film? I'm really excited for this answer. So go ahead and submit your guesses. Maybe you're familiar with what the animal life in the Ecofisk field is. And then at the end of the show, we will reveal who we caught on camera.
Wow. I guess so. We need our zoologist and biologist to jump in, I guess, on this one. You've already given us a little hint, so I'll be interested to see the answer on that one. That's I think this is a first. I don't know that we talked about other creatures before, so there you go. Always something new. Cool. Thanks, Shelby. All right. Well, as we, or as I mentioned just a moment ago, we are about offshore seawater treatment and what that looks like. And so, actually, if you saw the titles, offshore seawater treatment, topside, subsea, or both. So we are going to be, I guess, pun intended. So, diving into the topic today, and to help us with that, I want to go ahead and introduce our two guests today. So we Wouter Van Korven, who is the product line manager for Seabox, and Eirik Dirdal, who is the sales manager for Seabox. So thanks for joining us on, at least in Houston, this kind of cold day. The only thing I think we have in common out of that is the fact that I think we're sharing weather. I just looked it up. I've got degrees Celsius here in Houston. I think it's 10 in other parts. Wouter, Eirik, where are you guys joining us from?
So I'm joining from Copenhagen.
Hi, Michael. Thanks for being here. I'm joining from Stavanger, Norway.
Okay, so the first time I've pulled out anything other than just a button-down shirt, so it's nice the weather. Even though everything else has been crazy this year, one thing that's been known is changes in weather, and that's always a pleasant thing to see. So we're going to go ahead and dive into our conversation, and again, appreciate both of you being here. So Eirik, I'll maybe start with you. As I mentioned, we've had all kinds of things happen this year. I don't think it takes anyone to realize it's been a wild one, but I know in terms of really what we're seeing in kind of the offshore production space, that you and the team have really seen some breakthroughs and even seeing some positives, receiving the OTC, the Offshore Technology Conference Spotlight New Technology Award, which I know is not an easy thing to come by. So first off, congratulations you all, and secondly, why don't you tell us a little bit more about that?
Sure. Thank you, Michael. I mean, as you mentioned, the last year have been really volatile. It's been a roller coaster with dual headwind. We've got COVID-19. We've got low oil price, and a lot of the easy oil sort of is gone. You can't just put a well in the ground and expect to produce. So we need smarter solutions. We need to work harder, think differently, and this is one of those things that could help operators to improve their field economics and make or justify field developments.
So I know that recently there was some news came out about really you all securing some contracts or opportunity to continue some studies or major studies. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. I think we have been quite lucky with some good projects, mainly on the Norwegian areas on the Norwegian continental shelf with Equinor and so some of their projects where we've been involved in some major concept studies and proving the feasibility both technically and commercially for their field development. So that's of course an exciting journey. In parallel, there's some different things happening in Gulf of Mexico and some smaller exercises in the different regions of the offshore world. So yeah, we're very pleased with all of that.
So it looks like on the graphic we just saw the Seabox unit itself, which maybe it's kind of near and dear to me to always assume that maybe there are some folks that might be watching this who might not understand the importance of water in overall operations on the production side. So maybe could we talk about just very basic, why do you need water? Why is it important in this process? Because of course Seabox provides a very unique way to provide that need and that resource. But why do we need it? And maybe
sure.
Could you start out?
Yeah, sure. I mean, think of a balloon as your reservoir, right? And once you start to produce, the pressure will go down, and it will lose its energy. So, in order to keep the energy up and get as much oil as possible out from the reservoir, you want to inject some energy into the reservoir. And it could be water, it could be gas, it could be different things, but the most common method is to inject water.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. And so then maybe, and I think it kind of will lend itself, or I suspect the response will talk to this image that we have now. But when you look at injecting water, which makes sense, right? I think that analogy works, having a balloon, and so I but why not just go ahead and, especially if you're talking about subsea production, I mean, you're surrounded by water, so why not use what's around you and just go ahead and pump that in?
Yeah, exactly. That's a good question. And I mean, you have a lot of water available just around you, so why not just inject that, right? But as you can see on the picture here, there is a lot of marine or biology in the water, and mixing that with the stuff that is already in the reservoir could provide some negative effects on the reservoir, with the reservoir souring, and you start to produce H2S gas, and you've got a really poor quality oil, which is less worth without these issues. So it's really important to disinfect and get the right water quality that you inject into the reservoir. And sometimes it's sufficient just to kill or disinfect the water and then inject, while other times you want to optimize the water quality by taking out some of the particles to avoid plugging in the reservoir, or you want to optimize on the ions, where you want to remove sulfates or other things to make it compatible with your reservoir. And it's in that phase where you in this process we can have some issues with traditional treatment process.
So maybe for you, Wouter, when we're looking at these solutions and applications, I think even just based on the brief conversation we've had so far, I understand the need or the application and the benefit. But kind of one of that I'd be thinking about if I was kind of on the other side of the table is, how do we apply this type of approach or concept? How do we think about that, especially from a customer standpoint, when we're at some situations or locales where we're talking about lower for longer in terms of the overall oil and gas market and the value proposition there. We think about that when, of course, we know we still need to produce, we still need to do it in an efficient way, but certainly also want to couple that with technology like how do we do that, and how does Seabox help that?
Yeah, so there's no doubt that the operators, they will target their money target their investments where they get a good return. So that will mean that they will aim for the lowest US dollar per barrel and rank their developments based on such simple numbers. So the good thing with adding water injection to your field is that you'll get quite a few more barrels out of your reservoir just by the principle that Eirik explained. So water injection in general is good, and another benefit with our solution is that you can actually use existing infrastructure. So don't spend an awful lot of cash on building everything new, but maybe expand capacity on what you already have. You can enable water injection for tiebacks, which traditionally didn't happen very often. And yeah, like I already said, you would like a couple of 1,000 barrels extra in your existing facility, and you don't want to do a complicated topside modification, or you don't have the space or the weight. So then suddenly there's a lot of space and a lot of water subsea. So that's where we think we can come into the picture.
So if you're joining us, we are talking, our topic today is offshore seawater treatment, topside, subsea, or both. And that's the title of our topic. And so we have the opportunity to have a couple of our subject matter experts here with us today. So Wouter Van Korven and Eirik Dirdal are both joining us. And so we're talking about and concepts and with an emphasis on Seabox and other concepts there. So if you have a question on water treatment and would like to get your question answered, maybe you've long time question, or maybe there's a question that's just come to your mind during our conversation. As Shelby mentioned earlier, feel free to put your question in the comment section, whether you're watching us on LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, and we'll try to get to your question in just a few minutes and see if our subject matter experts can get that for you here in real time. And of course, if you're watching this after we've gone live, you can still go ahead and put that in and here to get with you. So want to transition over and Wouter about maybe some brownfield concepts. So we know that there's some developments in those spaces. What are some of the challenges that you find for those that are operating and really ultimately what's the job that they're trying to accomplish?
So the job that is being done by these facilities, whether topside or subsea, is just to produce as many barrels of water that fits the reservoir as possible. What we hear from operators is that these modules can be quite large. They are and thereby also heavy. They require offshore manning, people working on them. They require chemicals to keep them going, electricity, all kinds of. Well, basically, it's a factory stuck on a platform, like you can see on the picture that will show up quite soon. So if those facilities do not perform the way you thought they would, so they maybe have less performance, or you need more, and you don't have the space to put if you look at the platform, you see there, it might not be that easy to just chuck on another piece of equipment. So that's where we believe with our subsea solution we can add on capacity quite easily to your facility without having to build on and start rebuilding your topside, which can end up in quite a complex and costly project.
So yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Yeah. So then, I mean, again, kind of, and the only reason I jumped at it is so it was like, oh, so I hear what you're saying. So then help me, really contextualize how does then Seabox ultimately fit into the picture to help solve those challenges. So if we're talking from a space consideration, or if we're talking from ultimately operationally, how is this technology helping in that regard?
Yeah, so maybe just start with the actual process of cleaning and disinfecting the water. The big advantage of having the Seabox technology itself is that you have a huge tank. It's like 500 cubic meters of water subsea, and that means that the process, the flow of water going through that tank is slow compared to the volume, which means the water stays in this tank quite long, and chlorine reacts slowly. So chlorine needs time to react with the living organisms, which means the longer you have the exposure of the chlorine, the better your water will be disinfected. And this is difficult topside because you have you have the platform, and basically you're constrained by weight and space. Putting a 500 cubic meter tank topside would weigh 500 tons. You don't want to do that. And the good thing with doing this subsea is that the water doesn't weigh anything subsea, right? So this is basically the process and the inherent benefit of a subsea water treatment process. And then specifically, what do we solve then for the operators? Well, you can actually avoid a lot of maintenance on your topside. You can maybe reduce your manning. So in the end, you just lower your overall OPEX and maybe avoid huge CapEx investments to get where you want to be.
So Eirik, there's this little engineer inside of me that always likes to deconstruct things or to learn kind of how they got their origins, kind of the origin story of sorts. So I know there's one here with Seabox as well. For those that may or may not, sometimes I'm just in a camp of my own, but for those share kind of that fascination with understanding a little bit of history and maybe even some of the experience of technologies or things, how they work. Could you talk a little bit about Seabox, maybe a little background for those that might be familiar?
Yes, absolutely, Mike. I mean, the principles are much the same as topside, and sometimes it's the right thing to do, just being topside. But other times it could be beneficial to kind of use the advantages that you have subsea with unlimited space and weight constraints, so you can really focus on the water quality. And that's where it all began back in 2004, where the founder visited his pool in France. It was totally green, and with just starting off the electrolysis process, it was kind of clean again after a few hours. Not green, but kind of almost clear. So that's where it all kind of started. And if you see at the process schematic again, it shows that it all starts with the Seabox. So you take raw seawater, surrounding seawater coming in, and kind of use that just electrolysis, which has been known for years, and you create your sodium hypochlorite by electricity. So you just add power, you add electricity to it, and you create your sodium hypochlorite in situ. And as Wouter mentions, it is the time that is the big differentiator in this one compared to conventional systems, where we allow the chlorine to react with the water or the bio matter in the water, and disinfects and kind of partially chops these molecular chains up into smaller portions. And as you can see, these ultrafiltration and pump modules, membranes, they all are topside as well. But typically, when you don't have that long exposure time with sodium hypochlorite, you need to compensate by adding more chemicals, etc., to do the same feature, or to disinfect these the water properly. But when you're going subsea, you need to be absolutely sure that this process will last for quite some time, because it is really difficult to come out there and change these filters. So you can't just go out and okay, I need to change a few modules today. You can't do that. You need to have a system that is operating for a long time without any maintenance. And for us, where we have the Seabox as a pre-treatment to this system, that is the key differentiator, where these filters are doing the job that they are meant to do, removing particles, not necessarily biofouling and disinfecting the water. So when all of these different modules can do what they are designed to do, you've got a very reliable system. And yeah, that's why we also look at combining these solutions with existing brownfields, using a Seabox at the inlet of an existing facility, just to enhance your performance of your existing brownfield. Sorry, long answer.
Yeah, no, but it's a really fascinating subject. And one of the items, of course, that I'm curious about also, and some of the viewers are as well, Wouter, is talking about the environmental impact as well as the savings that are realized. What does that look like? As we're talking about, I guess in this case, Seabox.
Well, the good thing is that all the chemicals are created in situ. So you're from the salts in the seawater combined with the electrolysis process, you create the chlorine. The chlorine is then used by the demand of the raw seawater, but in the end, none of this water will end up anywhere else than in an injection well. So to be honest, there are no environmental concerns with this beyond that you're actually not using the same amount of chemicals that you would in a traditional solution. So in the end, we would say that there's actually a positive effect if you look on the HSC side of things.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So I know kind of continuing with you, we hear a lot about and we've talked through a lot of the benefits that Seabox can provide, and certainly having both from an operational standpoint, environmental impacts, but ultimately at the end of the day, especially from a customer standpoint, the very basic question is, if I'm the customer, what's in it for me? Why should I engage this particular technology for my field or my application? How do you talk to that? How do you answer a question candidly, maybe that direct?
Yeah, well, if you remember the boat in the beginning, that was really lots of things have grown on the surface of that. But if you look at the inside of a Seabox after 1 year of operation, you can see that it looks like it came out from the manufacturing site. So you can really see the effects of a very thorough disinfection process. And this also translates to the filter performance downstream the Seabox, where you can see a very stable transmembrane pressure. There we go. So that you can see that blue line, that's a differential pressure across filters over time. And you can see that it is really stable, and we don't do any chemical clean or anything. The only thing that we do is to backwash these filters to remove the accumulated particle or the dirt that is accumulated on these surfaces. So really, using a Seabox at the inlet of existing platforms could dramatically increase or improve your maintenance budget, and thereby improve operational spendings.
So maybe my last question is, if I've been tracking along with what we've been talking about here, and understand this is a very innovative technology, has a decent track record, installation, operation, ongoing even maintenance is sounds like pretty straightforward. So then the last thing I want to know then is that something I can get today?
Absolutely, you can have two if you want. We've got one stored, and one is in use now. It's well protected, but I'm sure I can convince these guys to let you have it if you wanted to.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I wish I could put it on the back of a truck, but it doesn't look like so. So no, that's great. That's good to hear. And we know that if there are some upcoming conversations that will be happening, some webinars, things like that. For folks that are interested, the best way for them to get more information?
Yeah, so we have as probably everyone else, we have an email account where all questions can be sent to. That will probably pop up on the screen now. Yeah, there you go. So there, the team, both Eirik and me, and all the other guys will be available to answer any questions. In the meantime, we're also planning some more online content and webinars, and well, if there's any people probably know where to find us on other media such as LinkedIn or wherever you can find us.
Sure. Good. Well, we'll put that up again in just a moment. But before we do, I know that, of course, folks can email their question at Seabox at NOV.com. But I think we have a whole slew of folks that have put in questions during our conversation. So in order to get some of those, we're going to do what I like to call a rapid question and answer session. So while we'd like to give lots of a robust answers, some of these might have to be abbreviated only because we've actually had so many great questions. So let's go ahead and bring Shelby Dumaine in to get those questions over to Wouter and Eirik.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. Audience, y'all watching out there today, y'all did great, asking some really great questions. So I'm excited to get to some of those. The first one comes from Michael on LinkedIn. Different Mike, not you, Michael, but different Michael.
Secret questions coming from me.
That's right. So he's asking, how difficult is it to regenerate membranes subsea?
Regenerate. Yeah, sorry?
You want to take that one?
Yeah, can you show the question again?
Yes.
Regenerate. So fix them or get them online again, or I assume, well, once these membranes are fed with a very good water quality, the likelihood of those being damaged is little. They don't need any maintenance at all once they are in operation. It's based on a cross-flow principle, which means that half of the water will pass and then half of the water will go through these membranes. If you need to do any maintenance on these, you need to retrieve them and hot swap with modules that you have on spare storage.
Maybe we can just add that based on the operation that we had so far, is that we have very, very good confidence that we can run membranes for at least 2.5 years before any chemical cleaning operation, and then run them for another 2.5 years before they need to be replaced. So, and for ultrafiltration train, this is 5 and 10 years. So this is really a different, quite a different scenario without cleaning than what you would be able to achieve otherwise.
Mm-hmm. Okay, gotcha. And then Juan on LinkedIn, here, let me show his question. He was wondering how backwash works.
Yeah, I did mention a couple of times. I wasn't clear myself, so that is a question. If I could, I would in myself.
Yeah, I'll try to be to answer easily. But filters work with the principle that all the water goes through a filter, and the dirt that you filter out, it will be accumulated on the filter surface. Now, with time, you want to remove this dirt, and conventionally you can reverse the flow so that water flows the other direction, and guide it out far away from the inlet of the system. And similar with, they can use air, scour, chemicals, all kinds of different things to have them happy. But for subsea use, we have shown in many a lot of experience that we can only reverse the flow so that that's sufficient to keep these happy.
Mm-hmm. Understood.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. Absolutely. And this next one, I just want to preface it by pronunciation is not my strong suit. But Chris on LinkedIn was wondering how power intensive is the electrolysis?
Electrolysis.
I was between the two. Man, okay, electrolysis, got it. So how power intensive is that?
It's very little. So for in normal operation, you tend to draw about 1.5 kilowatt hours. So it's very little.
Yeah. So that's enough to process 40,000 barrels per day, right? So there would be around 1.5 to 2 kilowatts, which is, well, in offshore power consumption world, very little.
And the good thing is that if you have seasonal algae blooms or the demand for more chlorine, then you can increase your current density and it's not by a whole lot, but then you create more of these sodium hypochlorite oxidants to disinfect the water. So you can tailor that.
Okay. And Samuel on LinkedIn kind of asked, furthering that question, he wanted to know a little bit more about what type of electrolysis system is being applied to it, and if there are any other benefits or whatnot attached to that.
It is based on electrodes. So you have a cathode and the anode, and you put power on one of them, and that process will create your sodium hypochlorite. I'm not sure if there are that many ways to do, well, if there are so many other ways, but that's the way that I know at least.
Yeah, and I'll let you know feedback. We did get a comment that said it all makes sense, and that much more about what it is. So I think you did a great job talking about that. I think maybe for the we'll do 2 more questions here. We're getting so many, that's why I'm like looking at the clock. So this next one comes from Michael as well on LinkedIn. How well do the high pressure subsea injection pumps perform?
All right, I can take that one. That's something that is not part of the seawater treatment system, but we, of course, as part, it doesn't really help too much to just clean the water subsea. It needs to go somewhere. So you're right. We need a well-performing pump that also doesn't need maintenance. Luckily, there are several of these vendors out in the offshore space, which we can refer you to if needed.
Mm-hmm. Excellent answer. I always love that. Maybe not in this system, but we got something else that can help out with it. And so I think we'll do this as the last question. Again, this is just live. If you, we'll still try to answer these, afterwards in the comments as much as we can. And like I said, you can call us or email us if you have more questions after this. We'd be happy to continue the conversation. But for this last one, Andrew on LinkedIn is wondering, and you can do approximate. I don't want to ask y'all to stick to an exact number, but approximately what percentage of debris does the backwashing filter remove? He's talking about sometimes there's still that buildup. So he's just wondering what percentage of it that it does remove.
Yeah, that's a valid question, because that's the norm for conventional systems, that you're not able to regenerate these filters as you want to. But as you saw from the graph that I showed earlier, we produced for 6 months, and we hardly saw an increase in the transmembrane pressure. So in terms of percentage, it's hard to tell. But the vast majority will be removed with this system, thanks to the Seabox as pre-treatment.
The key of the system here is that what we saw on the graph, the lower bottom line needs to be as close to horizontal as possible. And here you can see basically this is a period for over almost 6 months where we can see that there's no transmembrane pressure increase, which means that, well, if we put a percentage on it, it's like 99.9% we regenerate every time.
And it's worth mentioning that we did increase the flux throughout this operation, because it performed really well, so we could increase the flux of the water that went through these filters.
Excellent. And I see Andrew commented great. So I'm glad we were able to answer your question, Andrew. And like I said, if we didn't get to yours, we will try to later in the comments, and would be happy to continue via email or if you want to give us a call too.
Great.
So,
No, that's great. Thanks, Shelby. And always, Shelby reminds me, thanks to the viewers for those great. Always makes this a worthwhile conversation when you all are certainly there. Without our viewers and those watching, we're just talking to ourselves. So thanks for being here, and thanks to Eirik and Wouter for being here and talking to subsea water treatment and the Seabox technology. So thank you for sharing that perspective. And just as a reminder, I think we talked about it a moment ago, but we'll put it up again on the screen. If question that you have, or maybe you're still typing your question because it's a long form question and we weren't able to get to it, feel free to email that, and you can do that at seabox@nov.com, and make sure that Wouter or Eirik or anyone else on the team can get back with you. I know you're always happy to get your question answered. So again, a special thanks to them. So let's head and Shelby, go ahead and get the answer to today's quite unique Rig Geek post of the week. So this one seems to have a little life in it, so to speak.
Absolutely. I love this one again. This is one of my favorite videos, I think, that that I've seen here at my time at NOV. Not to hype it up too much, but we asked earlier, the question was during a project in the Ecofisk field, Seabox was filmed and encountered a visit from a interested local inhabitant. And we asked our rig geeks if they could guess or name what visitor we had caught on film. And we're going to show the video now. It was a seal.
There you go.
You can see he's curious about it, checking it out. Yeah. And it's always fun when we can catch these kind of things on camera.
That is, yeah, that's, I'd be curious about this thing too. And for those that were curious, got all their questions answered, or at least majority of them today. So that's cool. That's really neat. Well, great.
Absolutely.
Well, and certainly thanks to all of our viewers for participating and jumping in today. And again, if you have any questions on Seabox or want more information, you can send an email to seabox@nov.com. If you have any questions on NOV Live, or have a question about a technology maybe we've previously shown, or one that you're in that you'd like us to profile on the show, feel free to send us an email, and that'll be socialmedia@nov.com. So for all of us here at NOV, thanks for watching or listening, and we look forward to talking to you again next time.